guys. I know these videos have a way of kind of moving around, but that's just the way the project is laying out right now. So in the last episode, I finished this back half here. So from here, I'm actually going to be tying in the last of these tubes and getting ready to install the fuel cell into the back. So we're using kind of primitive tools, so this does take forever. Right here, this is what I'm using to trace the tubes that I'm matching up with. And so we got this guy right here laid out. That notch was a huge pain in the butt. We got that bottom side of the weld done, and then we're gonna be tying in to right here. So this, again, this is all 120 wall, not chromoly, this is DON. So here, it's gonna tie in just like that and kind of triangulate this whole structure. So let's get this guy notched out. And just like that, we have our notch right there and our notch right there to meet. So that is going to land just like that. And I wish I could describe how hard these notches are to get exact and on the same plane, but I'm getting better at it. So let's go and get these guys tacked in. All right, so now we have the sides of the cradle trimmed, and I've got these two tie downs basically holding it up from underneath, and that way I can kind of pull it up and level it up. But we have a couple tubes that we're gonna tie in right here to the back of the cab cage, and then we'll get back to the fuel cell. I just wanted to make sure as I'm putting those tubes in that this is going to clear. So don't want to shoot myself in the foot there. So let's get those tubes tacked in now. And just like that, we got our bracket over here. Lay it just like that. So now that hugs that entire outside of the tube, and then we'll drill a couple holes and match these guys in the back. So all right, well, now we have the tie down straps off. I have this one in there. For this hole right here, I'm gonna actually need an extension to get down to drill it, but we have that portion bolted in. We have these two brackets on the back. Those are holding that back section there. They have 2 bolts on each. And then we have obviously the other bracket right here. That is the same as the one on the other side. Now, one thing you may be noticing is these brackets all go to the top, which the kind of reason for that is now that we have these locked in on top, obviously I can throw tube connectors in there, but right now I really didn't want to, because if I do need to get to the fuel cell cradle, basically everything now can unbolt and drop out through the bottom. And hopefully that's not too often I have to do that, but that's kind of just packaging restraints that you have to deal with. And then I guess for one reason, people may wonder why I have these here. I kind of chose to choose the structural integrity, kind of get another triangle in there for one, and then also hit that portion of the inside cab cage right there. So trying to get as much kind of good geometry through the actual chassis itself as I can, even though it's not a All right, and next up, I'm actually gonna be throwing these tubes from up here to down here. I've already got them cut, unless you wanna see me cutting these over and over. It's the same way I've been doing in all my other videos, where I take the template, lay it down here, and cut the notch as needed for that. So in this case, I've already gotten these done. I know some people, I guess since we're on this topic, some people are against this tube going up to there. They like the look of the flat, nothing back here, and I'm 100% with them on that. I think it's super cool, super clean. Now, in this case, for the structural integrity of the actual chassis itself, I'm not able to get this shot up to that top roof tube inside of here, because I want to be able to have rear passengers and I want to have access to that. So we are kind of stuck doing it outside. Now with that also, our shocks are going to be outside of the cab, and it gives us another mounting location for those shock towers. So let's get these tacked on. One more thing I can talk about is with miter joints like this, you're able to take it, and I took this little piece of chromoly plate, cut a circle right there, and that way you kind of have a way of sandwiching in and getting a lot more weld inside of these miter joints. And personally, I believe these tubes are miters. I'm not a fan of the bend, especially some of them go way too far out right here and then they bend down. And to me, it's just sloppy. I think the miters are just low, clean, and well, you'll see them in a second. So that's going to just about do it for this episode right here. As you can see, kind of we all make mistakes, and one of the things that I did in this one is I actually mounted the fuel cell too low. When I started going to cycle the suspension, I actually noticed that I only had maybe a 1/4 inch of clearance from the actual bottom of the fuel cell to where the upper links were going to hit, and that's even with trying to add a little bit of additional clearance from the frame rails to where these are matching metal to metal. So in order to eventually, I'd like to get a skid plate and be able to throw something to help with the heat, because the headers are going to want to travel right underneath the fuel right there, and keeping the fuel from heating up is going to be crucial to how this thing operates. So I went and had to cut everything that I did out and redo it, and I raised everything up about that 1 inch, and instead of having that one fancy little plate to hold the fuel cell down, it's actually these top tubes that are going to be holding the fuel cell down. And then I'm going to be throwing in tube connectors at some point, so that way I can actually remove the fuel cell through the top as needed. And I think that was kind of the plan I was trying to avoid, but at this point it's just going to be the best way, and now I have plenty of clearance to do whatever I need to do, and for eventual packaging that I have in the future here. So I guess it goes to show not everything goes as planned and not everything goes smooth, and that's again part of the process, and I'm hoping to try and capture a lot of those in this whole series to show that it's not going to go perfect every single time. As you can see next right here, I've brought out the oil cooler right here. It's made by Triton Race Coolers. He's been a huge help in a lot of this stuff and making awesome products like this. He I was able to get these on a closeout deal. I know he's got a machined version of them that's coming out now, but for anything I'm doing, this is going to be more than adequate. So this is a dual oil cooler. It's going to hold a ton of transmission fluid in it, and yeah, it's going to be killer. So from there, hoping to keep the updates a little bit more common and maybe try to get a few more shorter videos than like this, where it seems like for the most part I've been coming out with these 20-25 minute ones. And then, you know, as the project gets smaller, it's not an entire back half. Now it's like, okay, we're doing the fuel cell, and next, you know, maybe I'll throw the transmission cooler. That's just me throwing real quick tabs in it. Maybe I won't. I'm still also just in debates on whether I wanted to sit flat, whether I wanted to sit with the actual, you know, angle of this and try to panel it in that way. Just trying to get the aesthetic I want and don't want to shoot myself in the foot for any other packaging in the future here. So the other thing that's going to come up, and I can't remember if I explained it earlier in this video, but fuel cell location. It's been a heavily debated topic of whether to throw the fuel cell back here or whether to throw the fuel cell as a mid cell. In my case, this is a 32-gallon Jeep Speed. It's going to be the affordable option for a fuel cell option, and for a weekend warrior, it's going to be more than enough. Obviously, I'd love to have a 50, 60, 75-gallon fuel cell, but you know, you start looking at, instead of a $1,200 fuel cell, you're looking at, you know, if not $12,000 in a fuel cell. It's a very different game that we're entering right there. So with that, I chose to go center or mid cell because, you know, as the weight goes down in the actual fuel cell, it starts ruining your tuning. And, you know, if you notice trophy trucks, they'll start out the beginning of the race, and these ones that are rear celled, they're sitting there and they're slamming bumps in the beginning, and then they do great mid race, and then they start running super light because everything back here starts creating a vastly different leverage. So ideally, if you're trying to get weight behind the axle, I do personally believe that in this case, it's gonna be better to try and throw stuff like your batteries back there, throw stuff like your spare tires, tools, all that, and all that is going to be static weight that isn't going to fluctuate through the time that you're actually driving this. Because sometimes I'm gonna be on a quarter tank and sometimes I'm gonna be at a full tank. And with this being mid-cell, you're not gonna notice the difference. Well, being behind the axle, maybe with a 32-gallon, you wouldn't notice the difference. But again, I feel like the other advantage that I had was this trunk is going to be massive. For anything I want to have, I can throw fold-out chairs, I can throw umbrellas. I may even be able to fit an Easy Up in that thing. It's going to be awesome for being the weekend warrior. And to me, not needing to climb up and over to get in storage that's going to be in the center of the truck, rather than that, I'm just going to be popping up tires back here and get to anything that I want right when I want it. So again, that seemed to be the better option for what this truck is supposed to be. So thanks again for tuning in, and I hope to be coming out with another episode pretty soon here. And I think from here, I'm actually working on getting the front glass on. So let's get to that, and I'll catch you on the next one.